Good morning. Welcome to our Sunday service, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Augusta. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'm Chris Garcia. This morning our service will be given by Reverend Don Cameron, titled, Who is Your Neighbor? This morning our announcements are from our new church president, Alan George. Alan?
Good morning. I'm Alan George, President of the Board of Trustees. And we have several announcements this morning. The UU Humanist Free Thought Group, which meets online on the second Sunday, will be meeting tonight at 5 p.m. Frank Carl is your contact, and you'll find his information in e-announcements. There will also be a called board meeting tomorrow, Monday, September 14th from 6 to 7, to discuss the way forward for our religious education and family ministry programs. All board meetings are open to UUCA members. Please contact me at board.president@uuaugusta.org for a link to the Zoom meeting, and we also welcome your comments by email. The UU Meditation Group meets tomorrow, Monday, September 14th from 7 to 8:30. Please contact either E. McNabb or Melanie Roberts. Again, if you check your e-announcements, you'll find all the contact information you need regarding these events happening this week. There's also on the e-announcements a link to the UUCA calendar, which is up to date and current, and we encourage you to take a look there and see what's going on, not only for this week, but for the rest of the month. And the final announcement for this week is that the church office will be closed until September 17th. And a future announcement, the socially distanced ice cream social is returning on Sunday, September 27th between 3 and 5 p.m. Rita's Italian ice truck will be in the church parking lot for your enjoyment. Enjoy the rest of the service, and thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Our chalice words this morning are from the meditation master Thich Nhat Hanh. My actions are my only true belongings. I cannot escape the consequences of my actions. My actions are the ground upon which I stand.
Now,
David?
now is the time in our service when we share our joys and sorrows that have recently come into our lives. My name is Chris Palmer, and I am a member of the pastoral care team. We first remember those who cannot be with us today, and we also remember those in the military service and their families. So, if you wish to share a joy or sorrow, please raise your hand, and when I call your name, please turn.
Thank you, Chris. So this morning, they've left me in charge of the meditation. I'm going to take advantage of that. Instead of the usual 2 minutes and chime, I want to give you something that you can keep. We won't actually be meditating together so much, but if you pay attention to the steps, I want to teach you a meditation practice that you may not have heard of. And for those of you, which is pretty much most of us, who are dealing with difficult emotions, this is a meditation which is very specific about helping you to convert and come to terms with difficult emotions in a realistic and compassionate way. Neurologists have been studying a lot about the effects of meditation on the brain. One particular form of meditation that stands out to neurologists in its effect on the prefrontal cortex, and it could even be a sort of talisman against Alzheimer's, is a genre of meditation called compassion meditation. There's many forms of compassion meditation, Christian, Buddhist, Islamic. This morning, I want to teach you the steps of a compassion meditation that comes from Tibetan Buddhism. This meditation is called Tonglin, T-O-N-G-L-I-N. So if after learning the steps of this, if you think this may be useful to you, there's a lot of information on YouTube and on the internet about Tonglin, which is a practice that comes from compassion meditation. And there's many kinds of compassion meditation. This is a meditation which is good for dealing with difficult emotions. It has an external practice and an internal practice that go together. The internal practice may really surprise you. It may even take a little courage for some of you to do this if you're going through something difficult. But I practice this meditation, and it is my belief that it will help you, and it will give you a way to manage difficult emotions as they come to you. First, the external, and then the internal. The external practice will be very familiar to you from our past meditations. It's a breath in and a breath out. It's not a deep breath, but it's a very deliberate breath. It's the way you would breathe if, imagine yourself right now standing on the end of a dock in summer, and you're about to jump into a cold lake. So imagine the kind of breath that you would inhale if you were preparing yourself mentally to jump into a cold lake. So you have this very deliberate inhale, and then you have a very deliberate exhale. Inhale before you jump into the lake. And there's that pause, and then you exhale. Now you notice at the top of your inhale, before you begin to exhale, there's a moment of silence, almost like a moment between thoughts as you're getting ready to change your direction and exhale. Keep that moment, a pause between inhaling and exhaling. Remember that moment. That's the exhale. Deliberate inhale, there's a mental pause, a natural mental pause, and then you come down to your deliberate exhale. The internal part may surprise you. It's very counterintuitive. If you've never done this before, it might even take a little bit of willpower to try it. This is a very unusual and very Tibetan kind of meditation. Imagine, don't even have to imagine, search yourself for a difficult feeling that you have that is unresolved and that you're struggling with. For a lot of us right now, it could be fear or anxiety. Maybe you're afraid of catching COVID-19. Maybe you're afraid of somebody you know who has COVID-19 and you're worried about them. Maybe there's somebody in your life that hurts you that you can't quite bring yourself to forgive and you have some resentment. Some difficult feeling that is kind of blocking you inside right now. Now, there's a skill in dropping the storyline. Don't tell yourself where this feeling comes from or what that person did. Try to feel the emotion itself. We'll use the example of anxiety about COVID. Don't tell yourself why you're afraid of COVID. Just conjure up the emotion of anxiety, and instead of backing away from it, instead of trying to fix it, reach out and grab it like an electric wire. Try to place your awareness on the emotion of anxiety or fear itself and let you feel that emotion without any storyline, without any mental chatter, just the raw energy of that feeling. Now, once you've placed your awareness on that feeling, visualize that emotion itself in front of you, as if it were a dark cloud, as if it were like cigarette smoke in front of your face. And then with that feeling on the emotion and with the externalization of that emotion in front of you, do that deliberate inhale and inhale that cigarette smoke of fear into you. Breathe it into you. That anxiety of COVID, breathe it into you fearlessly and defiantly. And then you hold that feeling and that moment of mental silence. Place your awareness on all the people out there who are feeling what you're feeling right now. Instead of yourself, think of all the people out there who right now are afraid of getting sick, or they're afraid for somebody they love who is sick now. Place your awareness on those people. And then on the downswing, on the exhale, send blessing and freshness and light for all the people who are feeling that difficult feeling that you just took on yourself, changed in yourself, and now you're exhaling blessing on everybody who's going through what you're going through. You can finish that exhale with the words, "May we all be free from suffering and the root of suffering." You can repeat that phrase. It's a Buddhist compassion phrase. You can repeat that a couple of times. So we're not going to meditate, but remember the steps so that you can practice this meditation yourself. And if something in you responds to it, you can look it up. It's called Tonglen. And it's a variation of the genre compassion meditation. There are Christian forms of this, and Islamic and Buddhist forms of this. Again, summary, this is how it's done. The anxiety, the fear of getting sick. Hold that thought. Think of all the people who are afraid of being sick, and exhale blessing on all those people who feel that fear that you feel. Send your courage and freshness to all those people, and you can say to yourself, may we all be free from suffering and the root of suffering. That's the meditation, and now you know it, and this ends our meditation. And now I would like to give you a reading as we begin our generosity. These are our offertory words. And Sexton wrote, "Look to your heart that flutters in and out like a moth. God is not indifferent to your need. You have 1,000 prayers, but God has one. Dear God, we give thanks for these moments when we can feel that we live in a world that is not indifferent to our need. We all have so many needs, 1,000 prayers, 1,000 needs that really only need one answer. Let the world not be indifferent. And may we live and be with each other in the way that shows this truth, whatever the day brings, that neither are we indifferent to each other." We will now accept the offering. And now our
Good morning, everyone. Our reading is from the biblical parable of the Good Samaritan. A lawyer, desiring to justify himself, said to Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" Jesus replied, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he fell among robbers, who stripped him and beat him and departed, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a priest was going down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. So likewise the Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he journeyed, came to where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion, and went to him and bound up his wounds, pouring on oil and wine, and then he set him on his own beast and brought him to an inn and took care of him. And the next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, 'Take care of him, and whatever more you spend, I will repay you when I come back.' Which of these 3 do you think proved neighbor to the man who fell among robbers?" He said, "The one who showed him mercy." And Jesus said to him, "Go and do likewise." Who is your neighbor? There is but one ultimate and invariable duty, and its formula is, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. How to do this is another question, but this is the whole of moral duty. William Temple, Archbishop of Canterbury, wrote that in 1923. The parable of the Good Samaritan is ingrained in our Western culture. Most of us have heard the story before, but how have we been encouraged to hear it? I've always taken the story this way. The hero of the story is the Good Samaritan. He is the good neighbor. While the man who had fallen among thieves lay on the road, good upstanding citizens of his own country pass him by. Only the stranger stops to notice the plight of the poor man. Yes, it is only the stranger who stops, gives him first aid, gives him a ride to the nearest Holiday Inn, gets him a room with breakfast in the morning, and puts it all on his Visa card. This is what it means to be a good neighbor, we are told. The story told that way is a nice little moral tale. It's great for feeling righteous and feeling good about it. What better than a stranger who is not like the religious hypocrites who talk a good game about love and yet ignore the poor guy who's been mugged? Please know that the Unitarian Universalists and other religious dissenters of the past were called strangers. Besides, the story fits right in with the good old-fashioned ideal of helping the less fortunate. You get double green stamps. You get them because you're one up on the poor schnook on the road, and you get them because you've helped him or her. Do good and feel good. What could be better? No wonder the story is so popular. I'm not trying to make light of a religious fable, nor am I trying to be cynical. I'd love to be as compassionate, resourceful, and generous as the Samaritan. Even more, I'd love to have him bump into me when I really need him. Who wouldn't? But that's not what Jesus meant by the parable, and that's not what his audience heard. What got me thinking about this old tale, which has worn smooth paths into the hearts of all but the insensitive, is a work by a group of religious scholars. They question the way we have moralized the story of the fallen man among robbers. The Jesus Seminar is that group of scholars. Their research leads them to believe that Jesus told open-ended, Zen-like stories which did not have clear morals. If there is a lesson to this tale, they suggest, it may be different from the one with which we become familiar. They suggest a twist which fits in with the context of Jesus and his audience. They suggest a twist that may be as uncomfortable to some of us as it was to the young lawyer of Jesus' time. Let's revisit the story. But this time, let's identify not with the man who has a leg up, but with the guy who doesn't have a leg to stand on. That is, the man who has fallen among thieves. Imagine being that man. There you are. Maybe you had one too many scotch and sodas. Or maybe you were distracted, thinking perhaps about how you're going to pay this month's mortgage, the ingratitude of your kids or of your parents, or your cholesterol level. Somehow or another, you find yourself walking in a section of town you'd never be caught dead in if you had your wits about you. In fact, the road to Jericho was such a place, hilly, winding, notorious for robbers who hid among the rocks. Then it happens. You're mugged, robbed, slugged, and left out in the cold without a stitch of clothes. You see people just like you, clothes just like the ones you had on 15 minutes ago. Upper class, apparently educated, and gainfully employed. Maybe they are people who believe in social reform and are against war. You cry out, or at least you try to. They keep going by. They either don't notice you or pretend they don't. And then, well, when Jesus tells the story, he zings his legalistic young questioner by mentioning the most reprehensible sort of person any Talmudic scholar could think of, a Samaritan. Who helps the man on the side of the road? Not one of his kind, but a detestable non-Jew who used to be even an underclass slave, somebody unclean, a person so unclean that after Jesus tells the story and asks which one proved to be your neighbor, the young lawyer can't get himself to say the S word. He can't say Samaritan. And so he paraphrases, the one who showed mercy on him. Who is your neighbor? Want to feel bad rather than a feel good answer? When you're hurt and bruised and as nakedly vulnerable as you can be, so much so that you think you might die. When you need help desperately, but you'd almost rather die than have anyone see you so low. But if anyone's going to see you like this, you want it to be someone you know, love, and trust. And when, on top of all that, when people like yourself, upstanding, clean men and women who, like you up to 15 minutes ago, couldn't imagine themselves in such a mess, actually do see you, making you feel even more like last week's garbage as they walk on by. And then the person you like least, someone whom the words bore or stupid or anything like that. I'm sorry, I lost track with my, and then the person you like least, someone for whom the words bore, disgusting, a jerk don't even begin to get near the point for you. The woman or man whom you like to avoid like the plague, and yet can't. You can't avoid them. When that worst of all person takes you up in his or her arms, giving you the worst of all nightmares. When the mortification you feel being seen this way by you know who has got to be worse than death, unless you're dead and this is hell, which suddenly makes sense to you. When the less than human takes you into his or her arms, your inner organs cringe, puncturing your pride and making you feel even lower yet if that's possible. As you live through this most incredible of nightmares, your life, as certain as it feels like it's the worst of living death, is being saved. And at that moment, that very moment, the voice of the sin-like rabbi echoes in your head. Have I got your attention? Are we getting the point? Who is your neighbor? Our neighbor is not someone who is just like us, not someone we like. Our neighbor is not just someone we can help. Our neighbor is also the person we almost die to avoid, the person we consider unclean, the person we have the deepest prejudice against. This is the point of the story of the man who fallen among thieves, reconsidered. Now, some of you may have a hard time figuring out people you don't like. Perhaps people you don't like are the faceless members of some group, like Christians, atheists, theists, child abusers, homosexuals, right-to-lifers, flag burners, adulterous politicians, lying politicians, hawks, doves, Democrats, Republicans, and so on. Perhaps people you don't like fall into even larger categories, like race, gender, and class. Perhaps right now you don't like Muslims very much. Perhaps you prefer your congregation to remain mostly Caucasian, mostly upper class, and very educated. Perhaps you'd rather not have your boss be a woman. Perhaps there is a church member you avoid. Perhaps you now literally hate some people who voted for Trump, and just 4 years ago, they were your friend. Name the people you don't like to yourself. You know them. Whoever is on your don't like list, that person is your neighbor. The great lesson of this ancient story lies not only in the universalist realization that each person is your neighbor, it also lies in the not too subtle suggestion that even the person you like least has a lot going for him or her. That person may be the one who not only has something to give to you, but may be the very person to heal you and perhaps even save your life. We are surrounded by so much, and so much we are surrounded by has so much goodness in it. Sometimes we get in the way of the goodness life has for us. Sometimes we get in the way of seeing what's there. Sure, there are a lot of frogs in the world. No one, not even Jesus, could deny that. But at least some of them turn out to be a prince or princess when you dare to get close enough to kiss them. It is not only true of people we relate to or choose not to relate to, it's also true of all things in life. Who is your neighbor? Whom do you love least of all? That is a degree to which you are able to love. Some people say the world is more than it appears to be. Perhaps it's true to say the world is more than we perceive it to be. What is gracious, what is loving, what is healing, what is holy, indeed, what may save your life may be hidden in the most unlikely of places and persons. Keep your eyes open and your mind and your heart. You don't want to miss it. On the deepest level of your being, your life may depend on it. There is but one ultimate and invariable duty, and its formula is, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. How to do this is another question, but this is the whole of moral duty. Amen, and blessed be.
Our hymn this morning is hymn number 129, Let Love Continue Long. It's a very old melody, and I think the words have some meaning to Rev Don's message. Hymn 129. Let love continue long and show to us the way. And if that love be strong, no hurt can have a say. And if that love remains but strong, no hurt can ever have a say. If love cannot be found through common faith prevails, and love does not abound, a common faith will fail, and human love does not abound, and common faith will always fail. If we in love unite, debate can cause strife, for with this love inside, disputes enrich our life. For with this bond of human love, disputes can mean a richer life. May love continue long and lead us on our way. For if that love be strong, no hurt can have a say. For if that love remain but strong, no hurt can ever have a say.
Thank you, David. Our closing words this morning are from Frederick Gillis. May the love which overcomes all differences, which heals all wounds, which puts to flight all fears, which reconciles all who are separated, be in us and among us, now and always. Blessed be